guys, Ms. Rodriguez here. Just sending out a new video on equivalent fractions. That's what I'll be reviewing today. But I just wanted to kind of remind you all not to stress out during this time. I know it's really hard to be home and feel like you're missing out. I know some of your parents and you guys might be feeling like you're not getting enough instruction, or you're not, doing enough math or doing enough reading. And although those things are important, we also just want to stay healthy and stay happy. When we're at school, remember that our schedule, basically all instruction ends at 12:30. We start our day in the morning. Instruction starts around 8 o'clock. And you do your math lesson or your reading lesson for about 45 minutes, and then it's just kind of computer time and centers time, and then you switch classes, and then you have another 45 minutes of instruction, and then computer time and centers time, and all of that is over at 12:30, okay? Because the whole rest of the afternoon is lunch and recess and specials. So I don't want you guys to feel like you have to sit at home all day, doing these iReady lessons and doing math problems and reading books. Because I promise you that, as long as you're doing about 45 minutes of reading and 45 minutes of math every day, you'll be fine, okay? And I don't want you to stress about that. You guys did a tremendous amount of work from August until spring break. You all worked really hard. I know I said it in the last video. So I really have a lot of confidence in the fact that just a little bit of practice every day will keep you where you need to be. Okay, guys? But now let me get to the lesson. It's going to be on equivalent fractions today. It is a review, so it should look familiar to you all. To begin, we need to, of course, be able to recognize a fraction from a model. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a model here. It's not the neatest. I'm sorry. I apologize. But here we have a total of 3 pieces, and out of those 3 pieces, 1 has been shaded. So we need to recognize that the shaded part would be our numerator, and that's 1. And then the total number of pieces would be our denominator, and that's 3. Now, if we want to find an equivalent fraction, we can multiply the top and bottom by any number. I know some of you guys like to get silly and multiply by the biggest numbers you can think of, knowing that as long as you're multiplying by the top and bottom, same number by the top and bottom, that you will get an equivalent fraction. But for today, I want to go along with the model here. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how I can show an equivalent fraction in the model just by cutting each piece in half. Okay, so by cutting each piece in half, I've doubled it. I've doubled the amount of pieces, which means I've multiplied by 2. I've multiplied my numerator by 2 because I had 1 and now I have 2. And I've multiplied my denominator by 2 because I had 3 and now I have 6. So that's one way to show an equivalent fraction. I can actually find another equivalent fraction by going ahead and taking this model here and splitting all of these pieces in half. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line straight across. You'll notice that I've just made 1 row into 2 rows. By making 2 rows, I've now taken my 2/6. I've multiplied by my numerator by 2. And I now have 4 shaded pieces. I've also multiplied my denominator by 2. And now I have 12 pieces in all. So that right there is just a quick lesson on equivalent fractions using a model. But as I said, we can take any number, any fraction, for example, 3/4, If I wanted to find an equivalent fraction of 3/4, I could multiply 3/4 by 50. Again, multiply the top and bottom by any number, and you will get an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to use my zeros trick. 3 times 5 is 15, and then I'll go ahead and add my zeros. So 3 times 50 would be 150. Down here, my zeros trick again. 4 times 5 would be 20. And I have a 0 here, so I'll add that. That means that 3/4 is equivalent to 150 200ths. Okay? Again, multiplying the top and bottom by any number will give me an equivalent fraction. I could take 3/4 and I could multiply it by a smaller number. Let's say 4. Again, multiplying the top and bottom, and my new fraction is 12/16. Okay, so just a brief lesson on equivalent fractions. You'll notice in the lesson plan for next week, the very first lesson is equivalent fractions, and the very first lesson on iReady that's been assigned to you is also equivalent fractions. So the Ready pages, I believe it's lesson 13, is going to go into some instructional pages that are going to look similar to what I just did, and then it'll provide you with some practice pages to do along with that. So for the first lesson, you will have iReady lessons that you can do, but you'll also have access to the Ready pages as well. I did send that link to you through Class Dojo if you haven't checked that yet.